rely on willpower. Create systems. Create habits and make them easy. Use a timer or schedule. Use the 2-minute rule because starting is the hardest. Adjust your environment so that it's easy to be for 2 minutes by setting up cues for the bad distracting habits harder. Use the time block. Remove distractions. Use a habit 5 times 20 minutes.
You're not crazy. All of this productivity advice, it's all absolutely useless. It's almost like the exact same garbage advice, just packaged differently for amusement. So shallow, weak, and repetitive, almost in a despicable manner. You've already consumed so much of it, but it's still not helping you make any real progress. But why? Why don't they help? The reason is way deeper than you might expect. They're all purely behavioral tips. What I mean by that is, they all tell you just do the task, and here's a superficial tip on how you can do it. For example, just schedule in your tasks because that helps you organize your time or build a routine. Or remove distractions or put your phone away. All of these are superficial tips on how to be productive from a behavioral perspective. Although that might seem like the way to go, this approach completely disregards how the human psyche actually works. You see, in the early 70s, the most popular psychologist of that time, B.F. Skinner, based psychology purely around human behavior because it's the only concrete observable part of the human psyche that we can actually study since we can never observe internal processes, right, like emotions and thoughts and such.
The pigeon learned that pecking the disc produced a reward. Then the behavior of pecking could be studied in relation to how often that reward was offered.
However, that model has been developed into a more comprehensive scientific one that depicts the human psyche more accurately, the cognitive model, aka the cognitive behavioral model, among many other names. And it shows that behavior like getting to actually do the work or beat procrastination is only a part of the human psyche. It's the tip of the iceberg, it's what appears at the surface. But underneath that behavior is a deeper, more complicated structure composed of cognition and emotion. This might seem complicated, but it gets simpler once you grasp it, and it is so effective indeed. Cognition is essentially how you perceive the world, your core beliefs, your identity, your value system, and all the lenses and thoughts through which you interpret the world, right? Cognition then leads to emotion, and then emotion leads to behavior. As an example, picture what happens when you see a tarantula spider. Your cognition perceives that entity as a poisonous insect, right? You then develop the emotion of feeling scared, and therefore you do the behavior of running away. This illustrates how behavior is usually the result of a thought in cognition, not an element of its own. It's the result of an underlying process. What does that have to do with productivity advice? The problem with that advice is that it tries to superficially tackle behavior directly, like just start or use Notion or use this specific trick or routine or whatever. It's like someone telling you to run. You'd be like, wait, what? Why would I run? Like, what for? How's that going to help me? You most probably won't run if someone told you to just run because there's no supporting backbone of cognition to fuel that behavior. Now, what if someone told you, take a run because it's healthy for your body? Okay, that starts to make more sense. There's now a thought in cognition providing some motivation, which is an emotion, therefore supporting that behavior. So you're more probable to actually do it, but not necessarily. You might still procrastinate, you might get lazy, but let's now take this a step further. Okay, now that is completely different. That's a strong cognitive base. So you have different thoughts now planted in your cognition that act as motivators, which is an emotion that'll make you more likely to do that behavior. You perceive the value of that behavior differently now, which is a part of cognition. And you also have acquired knowledge, which is also part of cognition about how to navigate the habit when it gets hard. Now, I know it's probably getting a bit too complicated now, but now compare that to the productivity space. All that advice is just superficial behavioral tips that have no cognitive base or a fair viewpoint, similar to someone telling you to just run. The most effective and most scientific methodology for changing your behavior, like getting to study or org or get things done or anything really, is to tackle the whole structure of your psychology, starting with cognition. Address the roots, not the leaves. Which takes us to the next point. What exactly are the thoughts, ideas, or elements of cognition that I need to plant inside my psyche to be disciplined and productive? And how do I plant them exactly? Let's take procrastination as an example. Which of these pieces of advice do you think would be better for beating procrastination? Just start, bro. It gets easier once you start. Or Procrastination is a result of negative emotions associated with the task in front of you. You perceive the task as not just the task, but also the set of entities associated with it, like an upcoming deadline, a past failure, doubtfulness of whether you can do it as perfectly as you want, etc. And these produce negative emotions. However, emotions only exist within a goal orientation scheme because that's the whole purpose of emotions, to provide feedback on how well you're progressing towards your goals. So removing it from a goal orientation will remove the negative emotions. So start the task with the X approach. X being whatever approach or protocol. Now, I discussed procrastination in deep detail and how to beat it in a previous masterclass. This is just a condensation of it for illustration. The second example provides a deep dissection of the process, of its nature, as well as how to act towards it most effectively with knowledge of what's happening, as well as knowledge of your psyche. It just provided a stronger cognitive and therefore also emotional base to support the action, unlike the generic one of just start. That is the key to a truly transformative protocol. The problem is that if you look at the examples mentioned in this video, you'll find one thing common among all of them, which you might not like very much: depth. Depth is a hallmark of effective cognition change. The deeper it can reach into your psyche, the deeper the change that you can create, and vice versa. Cognition change is a process that needs repetition, time, actually absorbing and reflecting upon thoughts, and optimally even writing about them. Why is that a problem? Because your attention span probably can't handle that. Meta is now developing an AI model that precisely projects the exact brain response to any piece of content you give it based on the analysis of hours of MRI imaging. The attention economy is only growing bigger and worse. You're only going to get more addicted, more superficial, and therefore less capable of engaging with depth. But we all want truly fast food consumption of media, including the media that tells us how to stop being addicted to that media and actually work on our goals. So given that the process we discussed in the video doesn't appeal to that instant gratification, fast food media consumption fantasy, this is the best actionable exercise you can take from this video. Understand that cognition change is the root for behavior change. And in case you're wondering how merely understanding an idea is an actionable exercise, you might want to rewatch this video.